Awesome. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Call 8, so officially 2 months of the book club. Um, before we get into the eighth choice, I'd love to hear if anyone has had um, a serving versus pleasing experience in the last week since the last call.
I've got one, but it's going to be confessional.
Beautiful.
Um, is that okay, everybody? I don't want to nudge anyone out of the way. Um, an artist that Laura works with, vocal coach, voice coaches, pretty well-known artist, told her recently that she was in need of some musicians for dates she's got coming up this year. So uh, Laura told her, "Yeah, let me think about that, and Chris might know some people too, so let me talk to him." So she did, and she said, um, "Laura told me that this artist needs a singing keyboard player," and I said, "Well, um, I think our friend Jen is available, so maybe I'll reach out to Jen." Will, were we talking about this the other day? Remind me.
No, no, no.
No. Okay, this is new to you. All right. Um, um, so I said, yeah, I'll reach out to Jen. And Jen is someone that I have known for a long time, actually going back probably 20, almost 25 years now. That said, we see each other intermittently. She works with another very well-known artist, and with she's the keyboard player in that band. Her husband's a guitar player, and they have a circle in that band, and that band gets hired a lot as a rhythm section. They recommend each other for things, and then um, they're, for lack of a better term, part of, they're the cool kids, right? They're a group of cool kids. I know Will and I have used this term before. So, so I think of my friend Jen, who's one of the cool kids. I haven't spoken to her a while, but I thought, man, she'd be perfect. So I reached out to her and um, sent her a text, said, "Hey, so and so's looking for a singing keyboard player. I know I heard through a mutual friend that your thing has slowed down this year, so I'm wondering if you'd be interested in being in touch with her. I thought of you." And I got a reply saying, "Yeah, that sounds great. Actually, yes, my schedule this year is slower than usual, so it'd be good to fill in some dates." I said, "Great, I'll put you in touch with her." Um, and by the time word got back to the artist, "Hey, this person would put you in touch with," da da da. Maybe just a day or two, Jen said, "Actually, I've heard since we last spoke, I've gotten another opportunity that's come my way. And so I might not have as much time free as I like. Should I still talk with uh, the artist you recommended?" I said, "Well, yeah, there's no harm in it, right? So that's fine." And so at that point, we kind of logged off. I said, "Congratulations on the new opportunity, da da da." And because I myself am in this place in between where my work has slowed with the artist, at least on the live side, the performance side, my work is practically non-existent right now. Um, I'm actually looking for opportunities like this and would love to be thought of. And what I and so insidiously, what became what I had intended genuinely as an act of service to both my friend and the artist, I then started to ruminate on it a little bit and started to think, she didn't ask me about my family. She didn't ask me about my year. She didn't ask how you doing. So there's no, like, it was pretty much one way. I'm giving you all this, right? And that's fine because that's how I intended it. But just because of the circumstance that I'm in right now, I realized, oh, I was expecting some reciprocation here. It's not on her, it's on me. But I realized my gesture, what had been intended uh, as service, started to fall apart. the serv- the service quality it initially had, I started to realize, oh, you know what? I'm tainting this now, and it's again, it's all on me. And so I don't know if that's necessarily related to people pleasing or whatever, or I just maybe I'm trying to please this artist for other reasons because I started to question all my own motivations, and I had a little mini spiral about it before I came out the other side and realized still did the right thing, still for both of these women, and it's all fine, and you should just get over it. And if now is a time for you to act, it started me thinking I need to maybe be a little more proactive now with at this time during the year. Spring's coming, live performance is going to start to pick up. And maybe this is a good time to be looking, but I don't know where to look. And because I perceive this woman as being part of the cool clique, a one clique of cool people that I get little in return from, have that maybe that's just like yeah, that's my own flawed thinking and unmet expectations all in here, not out there from other people, all in here. So that's why I offer this as a confession.
I love that, and I want to underline the power of coming in with that level of honesty. I know from my own experience, sharing in a group, I often feel the need to put the best foot forward and share something that I know will create some positive perception of like, oh yeah, Will had a really big breakthrough, awesome, and it comes from that place of uh, I care what you all think, and I want to look a certain way and come across a certain way and be perceived a certain way. So showing up with honesty, like tell using this as a space to tell on yourself in a way, with love, but to reflect that honestly. I love that you're using this as that for yourself. So thank you. Um, may I speak to what you've shared?
Uh, yes, I will say before you do, very quickly, that if I'm showing up with my best foot forward, it's that I called myself on my own bullshit here. So there's the win in this situation. But have at it.
No, I love that. I love that. Um, yeah, it sounds there has certainly been service. I'm seeing a both and. It doesn't sound like there's so much sort of pleasing wrapped up in this. That there has been an act of service, and you've served two people there, and between them, potential working relationship. Um, and it sounds like a personal expectation piggybacked onto the back of the service. Now, it also sounds what what you've shared about your calendar and sort of getting into spring and like, okay, maybe it's time to have a look, and it's a little bit slower than usual. It sounds like this is all pointing to a need that you have. There's a genuine need to find some work or to fill some dates. A perfectly healthy need that kind of piggybacked onto the back of this act of service. And so I see this there's a both and. It's not that so much the service has been tainted as this insight has pointed back at you as well and gone, there's there is a desire to find more work, and it's been expressed in this piggybacking, if that makes sense.
But not from the beginning, because I only realized that afterward, after I started to get a bit of FOMO.
Hmm. Hmm. What was the FOMO? What thinking took place there?
The FOMO is it's the perception not the reality, because as I said, I only am in touch with Jen maybe a few times a year. So it's not like I know what goes on in that circle of people day to day. But my perception of this clique has been they just like seem to fall out of one job into another. And they don't have to really go looking because people hand them things. And here I handed something that it might not have been the right opportunity for her. The money might not have been what would have been acceptable or whatever. But I thought, yeah, afterwards on reflection was like, why doesn't this happen to me more often? why why do I have to feel like there's still hustle? And do I even want to do that? Again, it's like stuff that all came out in the aftermath as I'm like just left with too much time and too much space in my own mind. But I'm glad it came up because it's obviously stuff. There's stuff to be dealt with there. So that's the good news.
Mm, mm. What's next? What's the next step? Now that you've noticed this thing, what's actionable in your world?
Plan A, sit tight. Um, Continue to serve. Uh, get out of my head. Really, I mean, just like do what I already know to do. Just do that and be okay with that. This came up, and my peace of mind in this moment was tested because I've been out there saying, allow, I want all this stuff to come in and I want to know when the right time to act is. We don't always get a hard cue when we're supposed to take action. Um, so
I love that. I love that. What you say about that this came up. What was it? T Tested my peace of mind.
and my motivations but that's all noise. It's emotional noise. It has no real bearing on the fact that when I when I look and say, oh, look what you're thinking, how interesting. How interesting.
Mm.
So yeah, that stuff is all still in there, but it's nothing to do with my true being and what I know to be best for myself and all of the beautiful momentum that I've been experiencing uh, over the last 6 months or so. Um, was just plain as day, and it's going to happen again. I mean, but again, it's like, how much time between stimulus response?
Mm.
I'd like to continue to shorten that time, meaning like stimulus, unhelpful thought, nonsense, distraction, noise. I know what it is. Instead of taking a couple of hours to like, God damn it. What's the, what should I be doing right now? Um,
Limiting time spent in unnecessary thinking.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Is there any more?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for sharing. Has anyone else got a sort of serving versus pleasing experience from the last week before we move on? I think in that case, game versus shame. Let's get into it. I'd love to hear from someone who's found some gold in this chapter, who's dug up some insight and some wisdom. I'm happy to kick us off. I think this one This was a really big one and a reminder of how, and incidentally, incredibly topical. I spent in the last week or so. Um, I've been getting myself twisted in knots of thinking, um, and the shame thinking has come back. One thing I notice is that it's few and far between. It happens less and less, and so I know that there's progress. Um, it's horrible to experience the shoulding and the shame, because I realize how long I spent uh, interacting with myself internally in that way, years and years and years like this. And so when I return, I find myself falling into that. Um, Man, there's some pride that comes in. It's like you've done well for yourself, given that this bullshit used to be in your head all day, every day, for weeks, months, years on end. So you've done, so there's that. And I although it is still it's not the nicest experience, catching yourself thinking certain things about yourself, etc. Um, the lifeline in all of this is knowing that at points in the last year I've discovered and have been connected to something far more true about myself. And so although the thinking is unpleasant, although the experience is unpleasant, I know it's not true. And that's what stops the full, what used to be, a proper descent into a proper spiraling into this thinking, and it would go on for weeks and it would inform my decisions. I call it hitting the big red button, which is what you hit when it's you reach the point of fuck this. I'm going to the pub, I'm going for a binge for several days, whatever it is, self-destruct mode. um I I don't spiral to that point because I've got this lifeline. I'm like, I know what's more true than you should X, Y, Z. You should be ashamed of blah 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 blah. And I know there's a bigger truth to me, even if I can't see it in the moment. Um, so yeah, it's been a topical one, and it's been powerful to be reminded of should. I'd kind of enjoyed several months here of I sort of relative prolonged internal peace. I was like, oh, this is absolutely lovely. And then getting back to this chapter, I was like, should. The last week or so, so present, so at the core of uh, that's the real thought, or the form that the thinking takes when we get into that headspace. You should be busier, you should be getting booked. Chris, very topical what you said. There are musicians I look at, job to job to job to job to job. um God. And then there's the internalizing of some external event that we've interpreted in some way, and that creates a rod. Go, well, you should be one of those musicians. You play well. You should be on that tour. I was like, oh wow, okay. And then you're into comparison, and it compounds. So I'm grateful for this space as well. Thank you for holding it for me as well to come in here and express. Um, there's more to say, but we'll get into it. I see some hands up. Sash.
Very similar to you, actually. I think this was a really good timing for me to read this chapter again. Um, I think what's really interesting about it is that in the moment when it starts, is that it feels so harmless at the time. Like saying, oh, I should do this, I should do that. Like, I feel like it can get masked by thinking that you're being productive or um, with like social media or things that you find like in some ways it can feel inspirational at first like oh that person's doing something cool and you can take notes from that and learn from it but so quickly it can then turn into shame without you realizing and it's like this like fine line between taking something on and learning and then that's that there's that added layer of thought that then turns it into shame and that's something that I think the same for you will like I just a lot of the time just don't notice it. And in the moment, it feels harmless. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because I feel like it's productive. I feel like that's going to help me. Oh, I should be doing that because that's what is going to get me somewhere to get a result or a good thing at the end of that like task or whatever it may be. And then over time, I realized I then do it in smaller things about, oh, I should be working out more. I should be getting outside oh, I should be eating better and doing this and doing that. And it kind of builds up. And then all of a sudden you're in that as you said, that spiral and that headspace where you're like, oh God, like why does everything feel so overwhelming?
Mm.
I'm battling myself, telling myself that, you know, all these things that sometimes are difficult because you don't always have time or, you know, also you just want to break, like just relax and enjoy life and not have to live in that kind of space of I have to be doing that. Um, that's definitely I find that I slip into it without realizing, especially when I'm trying to control the situation or control my life or like over plan. And that's something that I'm trying to work on at the moment. Is I think getting that piece between is like flexibility and play and control and like planning and setting goals and not when you end up too much this way and sometimes if you overplan or overestimate what you're capable not what you're like capable of mentally but you might I go oh I should be doing this should be doing that so I add more things to my day and then I don't physically have time to do them all so then the shame comes and builds even more well you didn't do it yesterday so you have to get it done today because otherwise that says something about me um and yeah, I find that it can slip slowly over time sometimes where you just don't realize and then you have a little bit of a wake up and you're like, oh. So reading that chapter was a wake up for me. I was like, ah, okay, I have been doing that. I just didn't realize. So yeah, it was good timing.
Mm. Mm. What happened after the wake up, the reminder? Did you notice something? Did you change something?
I think more that I'm identifying when those thoughts are coming up
Mm.
more. Um, so I think one thing that I definitely am trying is like working out because and exercise because I have a remote job. So I'm at a laptop all the time. So I think there's that shame of like I want to be working out because it means that it's benefiting my health. But then I definitely add that shame if I don't get time to do it. And I noticed I did it today because I just there's it's not going to fit in my day. And then thinking, oh, that's not going to fit. I have to do it tomorrow. Like I should do it tomorrow. I can't lose that and adding that shame. But I've like identified that and just allowing it to have. I guess it's like accepting that it can have space, but then how you deal with it is important afterwards.
Mm.
It's not like I don't want to avoid it because those feeling that like thinking is going to come up, but I don't have to listen to it.
Just to clarify, when you say I don't want to avoid it, do you mean the activity, the action, the thing?
More of like the thinking, like I don't want to. like where you try to, I find for myself, the more that I try and control or put pressure around my thinking, the more like overwhelmed I get around it because I'm trying to fix it rather than just accept it. And when I try to start fixing things, I then get frustrated because it's not working because I'm human. And then that adds more shame.
Mm. Mm. It the language often associated with sort of emotional states, etc. Managing your emotions, controlling your emotions. Um, it, and then there's the word fixing as well. The implication being that a thought is broken,
Mm.
and of course it's no. I think terms like you know a thought can't be broken. It just appears. It's our interaction with the thought that either allows it to pass or we fuel it, we add to it. And I wrote down here something you said earlier, battling yourself. I think that's the thought pancake. We have a certain thought and we try to combat that thought with another thought. And then we start to add more and more thinking into the equation. It becomes a fight of like, well, I call this thought a positive one, and I call this one a negative one, and now they're at war, and it's all happening in my head.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind of like with that the beliefs, isn't it? Let's say you see something online and someone's doing something cool and you go, "Oh, that's cool. I should be doing that." So you take that information and data and you apply it to yourself and add a task to your list. And then if it doesn't get done, you then go, "Oh, I didn't do it. I should have been doing it. I'm this because I haven't. Like there's something wrong with me because I haven't done it." And it's like that added extra of like then there's a belief associated to it that you've done something wrong or you're wrong or and I find it really interesting how we take on things from other people and go, oh yeah. I think that's the thing with social media that I find really interesting is getting that balance between absorbing that information and processing information at such a high rate as well, and then how we take that and decide what we do moving forward with it.
The interpretation happens internally
Mm.
because you're absolutely right. We could very well go on a musician's Instagram page and try and get into their model a little bit. It's like, okay, what are they? Who are they following? What management companies are booking them? What MD companies are booking them, etc., etc. Or go on and look and go, well, I'm not doing that. So there's something wrong with me. It's there's a problem. Hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a especially with music with as musicians as well, we lose the we're going off into like a little I'm going off on a tangent here, but we've lost it's so easy to lose the original like foundation meaning behind social media, which is to connect with people. And like we use it as a platform for so many other things. And we can still use it to learn and take on information and go, oh, that's cool. I could do that. But I think we do that through connecting with them, reaching out to them, having that conversation, and then building your relationships and having that authentic relationship with them as well. And I think that's like so easy as a musician to compare yourself and lose touch with the meaning of what social media is there for.
Is there any more?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Oh, thanks. So much of what you're saying, Sasha, could like really resonated. Um, I really liked the bit. Um, Shame is often borrowed shoulds from others. Um, yeah. Yeah. It's like, where, like, like, whose shit is this? Right? Like, where's, yeah. I, I don't know. I'm finding the power in getting curious about stuff. And kind of what you were saying, Chris, just at the top of the call, like you noticed it. And I'm finding from for myself, it's noticing it and like getting curious about like, okay, so what's that like telling me? And is that mine? Is that like from something else? And to what you were saying, Sash, like and will the like the allowing of it all, like that's been like how you choose to connect with that thought, right? Like allowing the thought to be there and how I choose to like continue to think about it and fuel it or like allow it. That's like really impacted so much of my headspace in the past few months and how I like think about life stuff and like things happening like before, like feeling like, oh, this is like happening to me, like again and again and again and again, right? And there's um yeah, and it really like starts with just like the noticing of it and getting curious about it. And not to say I'm on the other side of it by any stretch, but um it I've definitely feel now that I'm getting there are certain things that I feel like I should have done already at this point that I like kind of tell myself that story. And I loved a challenge in and I spoke to this in Project Domino Thursday, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but I love the challenge that Nick threw out around like what are you like most afraid of about this, or what is the thing that you're like most afraid of, like connecting to that and like playing with that, like almost gamifying that, like seeing how close I can get to like just doing it, the thing that I'm afraid of. And when I get closer to that and the fact that like I'm doing it, like that is energizing for me. And that's like helping me push forward. And I think for the first time, I'm not like, not to say I have anything figured out or I've cracked the code, not saying that. But I feel like I'm not as like drowning in the shoulds as much. I love the idea of playing with it because it takes the pressure off and it's about like tapping into the joy of the process. Like a real that, yeah, I like that. I like the lightness of that. And what you said around Will, I loved the bit like it's destructive to punish the dolphin for not jumping through the hoop. And like I'm not judging other people for certain things or like pets for doing certain things. And how am I like shaming myself. I don't do that for other people. I'm just doing that for myself. Like, and is that, and to connect to what I started, sorry, I've been going a little all over the place, but just to connect that to what I first started saying, like, is that shame and should like actually mine and mine to like have? Like, I don't think so. I think I'm taking that from other people. So yeah, that was a bit that really that stuck for me.
There's so much in what you've just said. I've written a few things down. Like shame as uh earlier when I was sharing, I was thinking of shaming and should as sort of just thoughts, not the interaction where we turn it into a motivation, and then we think we can't do the thing without that thought.
I think we need it. Like, I need that pressure because that's how I excel. I told myself that for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and it's brutal to live like that. It's brutal. And again, whiplash comes up a lot for me in these conversations. But that film, there's a I see it as partly being a film about choice of how you motivate yourself. When the musical director Fletcher finds, I can't remember his name, but finds the main guy and he's drumming, he finds him practicing. He's practicing his rudiments in a room. He's smiling, which is a really important feature of that particular scene. He's practicing and he's enjoying practicing. It's a game. It's fun. And over the course of the film, um, Fletcher abuses him, brings out the worst in him, and he becomes Fletcher. He takes on that voice. And again, going back to what you're saying, Elizabeth, like where did this actually come from? What is this shoulding business? Where did that originally begin? And that film kind of obviously they've condensed it down, but yeah, he takes on that voice and motivates himself in that way. And then some of the hardest to watch scenes in that film are when he's practicing later and his hands are bleeding. He punches through the snare drum. It is so far removed from being a game, from being fun, from being light. Um, and it's horrific. And by the end, he performs at world class level. He's not smiling at all. He's lost that part of him. And the film is also a warning, I think, in many ways, because he does succeed. He does reach his goals, and is broken on the inside. Is there's one scene he crashes his car and then attacks Fletcher. Like he's not well. He's not calm. He's not experiencing peace. So I think there's a warning in that film. It's like, yeah, actually, you know, this can be quite a powerful motivator, but it's an angry motivator. It comes from a place of not thinking much of yourself, of not caring for yourself, not loving yourself. And I sometimes wonder if I grew up in a very shame orientated setting, and I've sort of come around to the idea. I wonder if that worked for my parent. I wonder if they did well because of that, and actually in a roundabout way, they were loving me in the way that they knew how by imparting that. And of course, maybe I've created a story, but I now look at that and I just wonder, I'm like, because you're not a bad person. Not. I know your heart. I've known you for my whole life. But you motivate yourself from a place. And I wonder if that's what you know, and you're like, you're doing that to me because it worked for you and you want to pass on that. Yeah, pass that on. That's what came up for me when you shared, Elizabeth.
Powerful, even just to think of that as like, was that was how they knew, like they were trying to love, or I don't know. I don't know. Like, yeah, even if it feels, the motivation is like intended to do well. Like, it's still about shit, you know? Yeah. Wow.
Is there any more?
Yeah. Thanks.
I wrote down more things that there's loads of cool stuff and I can open that up, but I'd love to hear from you first, Chris. Oh, you're muted at the moment.
Um, I think it's reasonable to point, well, those of us in the Western world who have grown up in or around or in some proximity to the Judeo-Christian traditions, religious traditions, have all absorbed a healthy bit of the shame. Compounded with the pressures of the culture and social media, I actually start to wonder, even in between like the oldest version of that, in messages of shame encoded into not the religious texts themselves, but interpretations of those texts, perversions of those texts. In between that and social media, I sometimes wonder if it's like this is industrial age thinking, where time started to be managed. People got out of the rhythms of the seasons, and when we were in a post-agricultural society, work begins at this hour, ends at this hour. School begins at this hour, ends at this hour. And there's all this accountability for everything all of a sudden. And the pressure to conform, to deliver, because you don't want to, if you're working on the assembly line and you're not keeping up with everyone else, your job is in danger, right? So that's just amusing, but I think there's probably something to it. And it's just striking to me how just how deeply embedded that has become in all of us, that and we perceive, again, like it's the FOMO thing. We even when it's well intentioned, when we're trying to grow and evolve, and we think that other people are growing and evolving faster than we are, what should be a healthy prompt, or could be a healthy prompt, then becomes, oh, if I don't practice, if I don't get to the gym, if I don't make more money, if I don't find a partner, whatever the thing is, I think they're all, that comes from that same basic thing that's just so deeply ingrained in us. And it's really hard to turn that ship around, but it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible. And just to start to tie a little bit more of the play theme from this chapter into the conversation too, what's so beautiful about, you have the whiplash example, or in the book, chastising the dolphins for not jumping through the hoop. And actually that makes me think too, like for that movie, he achieves that level of mastery that he thought he wanted all along, and then it's destroyed him in the process. So it becomes that the Pyrrhic victory, right? Isn't that the idea? Yeah, yeah. You win the battle, lose the war, essentially. But the idea of introducing play into the process is, boy, I wish I'd thought of it. I wish I'd have realized it sooner, because it has made a tremendous difference in so many areas of my own life. And then there's also this, you start to think about where does the mastery come from? How do we get into the flow state? Where does our artistry come from? And it really all stems from that basic sense of curiosity and wonder, and even the ability to experience awe. Like, hey, wow, I've never seen someone do that. I want to do that. What's the first step? And then you just start to play at it, and you're not really up here. You're just like experimenting and trying, and there's no pass fail. We're not being graded on it, and so we can fully enjoy the process and connect with that, and get farther faster. I would venture to say, if it's something especially if it's something we've got a natural skill for. But if we can take then and adapt that idea of play, it takes the heat and the charge out of those times where we're inclined to be hard on ourselves. And as we know, I'm sure everybody can relate to some extent that, we can be so quick to see the best in others, to forgive others. And it's so difficult to turn that back around inside because of this bullshit standard that we've absorbed for ourselves, and we think somehow we have to do better. We expected more of ourselves. It's kind of like what I was speaking about earlier. My story is like, dude, you know better than this. What the hell's wrong with you? Why do you, this is a beautiful gesture. Why do you have to go and ruin it? But yeah, and I love too that the last thing I'll say is that that biblical idea that to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to become again like a little child. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably been misinterpreted, misquoted many times. But the truth for me in that statement is that willingness to go back to to reconnect with that sense of play and wonder and curiosity and awe that we had as children, that opens the gates of heaven for us, right? And it's a thing that naturally happens over the arc of our lives too. But and maybe we see it as something that you have to acquire in middle age or beyond. But I think we can. I think maybe our whole consciousness will shift where we can pull that all forward a little bit and like, hey, let's not wait until life has kicked our ass for 40 or 50 or 60 years before we start this. There's probably a way to begin to inhabit that mindset earlier with support. So that's my take on it. Especially around money. I'll say bring play when that was an area that needed healing for me. And when I had no choice but to face up to it and all the poor decisions I'd made in the past and decide, okay, and we're going to forget about all that now. We're going to start right where we are. Let's rather than railing against the system, let me find out how it works. Let me figure out how I need to engage with it in a way that works for me. And let's just keep this very, very simple. And let's start to stack some very small wins, and the play concept for me, that's the area of my life where that was most helpful. So thanks.
And thank you. Again, there's so much in that. This is pointed to in the final segment of the chapter with Amanda, is this adulthood belief of important equals serious. And so, okay, this thing is really important. therefore I must be serious about this in my approach to this and how I go about it. It's very, very heavy, and I've got to be austere in my approach. And I don't know. Does it does that really help as much? And I love Steve Chandler's very, very simple, challenging. And again, you see his sense of humor. It's like, that sounds fun. It's like, no, it doesn't sound fun at all. So of course you don't want to do it. But that's where we've got this idea of the grind, I think. Head to the grindstone, get on with it, push, drive through, and it's so heavy. And I love the other thing that you said there, Chris. You pointed to the small wins. And I would pose this as maybe a rhetorical open question to the group to go and have a think about this week. And same for me. Reflect on, like, how often do you acknowledge the small wins? How often do you notice the small gains, or are you just looking at the gaps? And whilst it's important to acknowledge gaps, you know, we need that. It's a both and. Got to acknowledge the gains. And we measure, this has come up. You said this, Elizabeth, certain things I should have done by now. And this has been sort of mirrored by a few other people and has been one of the topical thoughts I've used to torture myself over the last 10 days. Um, I should have this. I should have bought my flat by now. I should have found a partner by now. I should this and blah, 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 blah. Um, and it's always the big stuff. We always measure the big, buy a house, for a partner, start a family, always the big, 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 big things, massive promotion. But the everyday is the small wins. That's the stuff that happens on the daily basis. And hence why I'm offering that question, and for me to play with as well. How often are we noticing and genuinely acknowledging ourselves for those? Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Karen.
Hi. Right, as usual, I've messed up because I'm doing it on the phone and I couldn't see that I hadn't put my hand up. I thought I had. So you've come to me just as I have to leave, but I'm going to do this. Every time it's that 8 o'clock, we drive at 8. So I shall be quick, even though I'm trying to slow down now. So the things that haven't been said yet that really struck me was how this is how we are. We've been programmed to be like this, and a lot of it is the way the media work on us as well. I remember in the 80s, it was all about having it all. Like, there's the money, look at my watch. And like, you've got to, work hard, play hard, and all those things. And you start building that into your belief systems. And we've all got that. We're all, as much a victim of that as each other. And yet we personalize it. And that's, for me, that's when I've noticed the shame coming in, when I've personalized it. And it happened to me this week when I was too ill to clear my parents' flat. And I had a session with Will. And he said, "Oh, have another read of this." And I thought, oh, goodness sake. It doesn't say anything about, I thought, oh, it's the end of the world. This was my week, my big week to do it in. And I was just too ill I couldn't even go upstairs at one point. And then I had to pop round there on Sunday. And I looked around, I thought, oh, do you know what? There's not that much to do, actually. And then the possibility of game came into it and thought, I have done a lot. already. I'd been saying, oh, my dad's been dead nearly a year. What have I done? It still looks like it did when they lived there. What? No, it doesn't actually, because there's no beds. There's no beds. There's stuff on the floor because there's nothing to put them on because I've got rid of a load of stuff. So how we like, so we do shame ourselves all the time, and then we feel ashamed because we've shamed ourselves, which is just another stupid thing. But the fact that we've all on this call of like, yeah, no, I do that too. Like, we can lighten up. It's not our fault. It isn't our fault. And all we need to do is to notice it in whatever way that is. And for me, that's when I've personalized it. And then he said, and then he says, the truth is it's merely a choice. Happy days. That's it, isn't it? That's all we need to know. It's a bloody choice. You thought it was the thing. You turned it into a big story about how shit you are. But all it is a choice. And that's it. Pressure's off. Oh, shit, I didn't know that. And we know, don't we? We know that, like Mary Poppins, we all grew up knowing, what was it she saying? Every job that is to be done, there needs to be an element of fun. Da, 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 all that. We know that's how to get children motivated. I've had children, I've played games to get things sorted. I know their stuff. And yet so important and precious, but it doesn't apply to me. You know, that kind of utter rubbish. So, yeah, like, why? And then to turn it into a thing where, oh, I've now got a problem. I now need to pay a psychiatrist for 2 years to look at my navel because I didn't know there was a choice. So, I mean, and Steve didn't know there was a choice either. So he's not saying you idiots. Like, it's just so unobvious so often. Like, just lighten up, but you know now. Now you know there's no excuse. So now go and find the game. Now go and find your spoonful of medicine, sugar to help the medicine go down. Like, that's it, isn't it? Like, just as soon as you stop yourself, as soon as you hear yourself making up a story about it, which is what it is, and blaming yourself, like, just, oh shit, there's a choice. Where's the game? And then go and look for the game. Every time. Simple. So simple. But we don't like simple things, do we? Because we think easy is wrong. And then we feel guilty if we get things easily because it should be so much harder. And, well, who says that other than ourselves? So I think the idea that easy can be fabulous and fun, and let's look for easy and not beat ourselves up when we get things easily. Anyway, I'm now going. It's 8 o'clock. And I'm sorry if I just rambled then because I have no idea. But yeah, I've got to go. I'm listening still. I'll come back later.
Thank you. I've written down looking for easy. And that's brought up a question in my mind around that belief. What's the saying? Nothing worth having ever came easy. Is it something like that? Yeah. Love that. Sash.
Yeah, just everything all of you were kind of saying was really speaking to me. With that kind of programming as kids, I think when we're kids, we get given like this rule book, like all the rules that you have to follow. You should be doing this. You need to do that. And then as we get older, that becomes a bit more blurry. We have more, flexibility in what we're doing a bit. There's still rules to follow, but we can pretty much, lead our own lives. And the should for me, like, I feel like if I don't do it, then something bad's going to happen. Like there's going to be a repercussion of something. So that I use that shame, like I should be doing that. Because if I don't, I'm not going to get this, or something terrible is going to happen to me, and a really great person, my sister, that I always use as inspiration for it, because she's about 6 years older than me, and we're polar opposite. I'm very much like was goody two shoes at school and followed like what teachers said and didn't break any rules, and she was very much like, meh, not hurting anyone. Like, why does it really matter? And when we're together a lot, she'll go to do something. I'm like, oh no, we can't do that. We shouldn't do that because we're going to get in trouble or something bad's going to happen. She's like, no, it's not. Like, why is something bad going to happen? And she'll just go and do it. And then I'm like, oh, that was actually quite fun. Like, we actually had a really good time and nothing bad happened and it's okay. And it's a really good reminder. And since I've noticed her doing that, I've kind of tried to use that in my own life and think, okay, if I feel like I should be doing something or follow a certain rule, is it just habit that has held with me? And why do I think I should be doing it? Like, there's no reason. And I think as well, like when we were talking about social media, is that you think other people have these like set of rules or things that like they've got the golden ticket to success, and those are the set of rules that you need to be following to get that golden ticket as well. And that kind of drives it, like, oh, if I don't do that thing, I'm not going to get that success that I want, when really that's just not true. Like, everybody does it in their own way, in different ways. And I try and ask myself now, like, why do I think I actually need to do that? And if I didn't do it, what's really going to happen? Nothing bad's actually going to happen to me. I'm not going to lose out on anything. I'll probably have more time for another opportunity and open up to new other things that actually suit me more. And I just get wrapped up in this thing of trying to be something to escape that fear of something bad happening.
Hmm. The word that's coming up for me is attempting to control
Mm.
that which you pointed to earlier in the call. Um, I think you said, "Oh, it's when I try to overplan and control that things get a little bit slippery and a little bit, um, yeah." So a fear of some undefined consequence.
Mm. Yeah, you're not going to get that thing you want if you don't do it, or things that something, yeah, is going to bad something bad's going to happen if you don't do it.
And then creating that task as the the
Mm.
saving grace.
I saw, I can't remember where I read it, and I don't know if I've already mentioned this, but I saw somewhere that was talking about making things easy for yourself, and they used going to the gym as an example. I said, okay, well, if you set yourself up that you want to start going to the gym, and we overplan it and we go, right, I'm going to hit hard, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour every single morning, and I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and I'm going to make this time count. You're just making it more hard because then you're not just going to the gym. You have to do a whole workout for an hour. You have to get up an hour earlier than you normally do. So you're adding all these other things that makes it hard to actually go to the gym or even doing something that is the gym the right exercise for you. Do you actually like going to the gym? Or do you like playing tennis or going running or going swimming or dancing or and it's that same thing like, oh, we should be going to the gym, we should be exercising, we should be working out because that's what we see other people doing and that's what we think that's the only option. Whereas actually, like, for ages I was like, oh, I actually don't like going to the gym. Like, why am I trying to make myself do this? Like, and I read that someone like, just make it as easy as possible for you. If you don't like working out, then how do you think you're going to be working out in a year's time if you don't like it? And then you're going to hit yourself because you aren't doing it because you don't enjoy it. That's just wasting time. Um, so I started swimming instead. I was like, oh, I actually like swimming, and then actually go swimming quite regularly and spend time. And I actually miss it if I stop doing it. Instead of shaming, I'm like, oh, I miss going swimming. I miss moving my body. That's good fun. I find it peaceful. It's good for my mind. And instead of feeling like, oh, I should go, I actually want to go. And I think it's that as well, is that we get confused with things that we should be doing versus what we want and actually enjoy doing because we see other people doing it or we think that that's the rule book that we need to follow.
I love that. So you found a game.
Yeah.
Make it make it fun. There's an underlying theme of comparison that I can't ignore that's just running all the way through this call. And it is that when interestingly it sneaks up on me. Some things I catch quick. I'm like, "Oh, you're doing that thing." That one, it could be a day or two before oh I'm I'm just on Instagram looking at it. Oh, nice stadium. Yeah, nice. That'd be all right. I'm like, well, you're doing the thing. Um, and it's the thief of joy.
Mm.
The ultimate message you're sending yourself is, I'm not happy with you. I'm not happy with how things are. And I'm not saying that that's true. It's ignoring all the small wins, all the gains. It's ignoring your context, your story, everything that's relative in your world, and just going, well, there's that person doing that, and I've got no context for their world, where they've come from, etc., etc., etc. And I'm just looking at this highlight reel, and then I'm going to compare that. I love what you said, Sash. The because there's a lot of those pages on social media that do the here's 10 things,
Mm.
10 things if you want to be an absolute and it is stuff like, never eat a carb ever again, up at 5 a.m., uh cut out 90% of your friends, like you really, really severe, serious, heavy stuff.
Yeah, and the algorithm, as soon as you have a couple of seconds watching it, and then feeds you more and more, and you just slip into it, don't you?
It's what Steve Chandler says. And it absolutely looks true to me. Humans are at their best when they're having fun. They play their instruments the best. They show up light. They're more creative. They get flow is just there.
Yeah. When did we stop thinking that that was an option? Right. Same thing with work, isn't it? As she said in the book. Work's not supposed to be fun. About how many people are in jobs that they don't like because they don't think that it can be fun.
They don't see the choice because, as Jeff said a few calls ago, there's always a choice. You just might be very scared of the consequences of that choice. If you're in a very, very well paid job that you absolutely hate and you've built a lifestyle around said income and you depend on it, there's still a choice.
Mm.
You could leave the job. The consequences might scare you. You know, you might have to revamp a lifestyle, you know.
I guess it's also that thing that you think that having fun means a sacrifice. Like enjoying a job means that you should sacrifice financially or sacrifice something, or if you get the success that you want in your career, that means you have to sacrifice time with your loved ones or the thing that you want. There's always like a side to it that you're losing something. It's like, oh, I can't have fun because I need this.
That's a big question you've asked, and I'm going to be thinking about that this week. Is there any more?
No.
Thank you. Chris. Oh, you're muted, Chris.
I'm so comfortable here. I just, I was really touched by something you said a couple of minutes back, Sasha. But before I come back around to that, the whole idea of five things you need to know, 10 things you need to do. That is like SEO optimization 101. They tell all these content creators to do that because that, it's very deliberate, and that's why we see that stuff all the time. You all probably know this already, but it wasn't until about 2 years ago I realized, oh, this is like, it's had it spelled out for me or exampled for me quite clearly by someone looking to, I heard that was working on a social media campaign, and the social media thing is so tricky too. We know that people put idealized, not even necessarily fictionalized, but just idealized versions of themselves in their lives on social media. And I think there's a way to do that. I think there's a way to actually share things that are special without doing that. I think we can, I think I'm more drawn to people that I see posting their struggles as well as their gains and being honest, at every level. And I had a pretty interesting example of this play out last weekend when the bass amplifier company that I work with, we endorse one another, had an event at a music store grand opening here. And so it was all afternoon, different equipment companies promoting their stuff. And so I showed up and was socializing a bit with a couple of other with the gentleman from the company, and then another bass player who was there to play. There are actually quite a couple of very well known bass players there. But we're socializing, doing the chit chat, and then there's a young woman, a bass player, who was going to be the first featured artist for this company at this and do a little 30-minute slot performance / demo. And I'd never heard of her. She lives here apparently, and she got up there to play, and didn't had that thing of like underprepared and overconfident. And we're in a small space, so by making she also had this personality and this stage presence, whereas if she was looking at everyone in the room, and you got this feeling like if your eyes drifted away, you were going to get called out at any second because she was so uninhibited on the mic and so in it. But then she started doing her thing, her solo performance. Not good at all. And my main one of which is fine, but one of my main complaints with it was that she's not even talking about the gear. She's here to be like talking about this company's product, and she didn't do any of that. She went on a 20-minute unbroken medley of cover songs with her singing and accompanying herself um, uh, very sloppily on electric bass. So it ended, and I was just, it was one of those things where you just like, I was really feeling for her in that moment too, because I'm like, wow, she's clearly nervous. Her makeup started to run, and it's just like the nerves, the nervous energy, and so then I say quick hello to her and the other bass players before I leave, and I leave, and I'm recounting the story to Laura, and I didn't want to. I said, I watched this most interesting thing. And I said, but I don't want to try to explain what she does. Let me find her on social media. So I did. And she's got about 2,500 followers. And it's all the check me out, check me out, check me out, check me out. Well, already there's a photo of her in between these two very famous bass players. Like, so there was a clear cut case of like, this is not real. I mean, yes, she was there. Yes, she met these people, but there's a big disconnect here in between what I saw and the opinion that I formed about it. Now, if I hadn't been there, I would have looked at her and I would have made a lot of judgments like, whoa, it just looks like a heavyweight, heavyweight bass player. Cool, good for her. So that was just a funny example that I watched happen in real time of the gap between how someone portrays their life and what it's actually like, or the way they're using social media in that way. But Sasha, what you said was that you were afraid that, or if I'm remembering correctly, you expressed something along the idea of I was afraid not to do this thing because bad things were going to happen. And that really was just like, I felt that in my heart when you said that too. And then I realized that sword cuts both ways too, because have we all had that feeling occasionally where you're afraid if you get what you want, that bad things are going to happen? I've had that too, where that's a tricky place to be. I don't even really have a follow up to that statement or that idea that I just expressed, but that, boy, I mean, again, it's that lizard brain, man. It just wants to jump right in there and tell you oh, you want that? Well, you might not get it. You might not get it, and you'll perish if you don't. Or, oh, well, yeah, you can have that, and it can be easy. But if you get it, look out, because someone's going to come take it from you, or you're gonna get sick, or whatever. For what it's worth, that's I really that statement connected with me, Sasha. Thank you.
That's beautiful. And this has come up quite a few times over the last couple of months. The throwaway cultural stock comments that we have that are often kind of at odds. So, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. You can't have your cake and eat it. Like what you were saying, Sash, it's like, well, if you get one good thing, you've got to sacrifice in some other area. How many times are musicians asked, or the kind of, oh, it's all right for some, or yeah, but you do what you love. Or you'll hear musicians themselves uphold, I'd rather do something I love and make no money than get paid loads and do something I hate. And so why are those the only two options? But we do. We have these sayings that uphold all of this stuff. So that came up for me when I was hearing what you were saying, Chris, about what you were speaking on what Sash had said. Chris.
And also, as you were speaking, Sasha and Will, you know what? When we were talking about like, why can't it be easy? Should it be easy? Of course, well, of course it fucking can. Says who? We have to fight and scrape and hustle for everything, and we can't just accept when the universe brings us a beautiful gift, and it can be easy. And in fact, shouldn't it be? Like, and why do we? And Sasha, you also were talking about all the barriers that we put between ourselves and the thing that we think we should be doing to make it even harder. It's it's insanity. And what I love is that as sometime as you were speaking there, I have the book right here, and it, the second section, fourth paragraph, the first sentence is, once a game is joined, there's no need for me to also try to motivate myself. There's the tell, right? Should we be doing this thing or not? And if we feel, if there's a good reason for us to be doing the thing, how can we make it easy? What can we do to make it easier?
Amazing. Karen.
Yeah, I was just about to say something and then Chris said it. So I'm going to claim Chris's genius. Um, no, so all I've got left really to say is that, like Steve's last sentence is, this is no game, precisely the problem. Like all of this, it's just, we make up a big story and yet it's so simple. And if we're not gaming it, then we're missing the point. And that's it, isn't it? Doesn't matter why, it doesn't matter anything. Any of that's just like irrelevant. So we need to make sure that we're in the game. And we know what the signs are to not being in it. So there's no excuse now. And we didn't know till we knew. And now we know. So I just love that. Precisely the problem, I said. Oh, he's so sweet, isn't he? Love him. Anyway, I've got nothing else. Just that. It tickles me.
Nothing more is needed. I love that. Thank you. Sash.
Something just popped up there for me. With things being like serious and not fun. And I wonder if it's the expectations that we have on something. So an example for me was like relationships. We have an expectation of what a relationship looks like with a partner. So because of what we've been taught or parents and what that looks like. So then if you don't have, your relationship doesn't look like that, you then start to try and make it look like that because you have those expectations. And then that's when it becomes serious and you actually lose out on playing and creating your own version of what you want it to be. And I think that can be pulled into everything with our careers. We have an expectation of what we think it should look like. So we do everything or shame ourselves to make it look like that. And then that's where the seriousness is built. And we then aren't allowing ourselves to play with what we want it to look like.
Well, not all, and taking the blinkers off and noticing what it is, what it currently is, and finding the beauty in that, finding the small wins in, where am I currently at? What do things actually look like right now? Do you remember 5 years ago when this is what you were dreaming about? Give yourself a break.
Yeah, because we get taught, and as we said, going back to programs, we get programmed or taught on what things should be versus actually teaching ourselves to try and figure out what we want it to be.
I love that insight. I love how you've joined those dots. I'll be thinking about that this week. Thank you. Is there any more that anyone wants to share or say? Awesome. That feels like a natural close. Guys, thank you very much. Again, 2 months in. Yeah, amazing. Thank you for everything you're sharing, everything you're bringing to this. Um, there's a few people I shared this chapter with, and I'm going to send them the replay now as well because this is a good one. Thank you. I'll see you all either in Domino or in other calls. Take care. Bye.